Hey, welcome everybody to Spin Legal, episode number 77, with myself, Peter Giblett, and herself, Angela Browne. So good evening, Angela. How are you doing?
How are you doing, Peter?
I'm not doing too bad. I'm getting on there. I'm working hard for my clients.
Yes, you have to.
All right. Okay, so just to let everybody know, you can contact Invictus Legal on 905-688-5598. Email Angelo at weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal. And the website is weareinvictus.legal. There you go. And our topic tonight is, what is a guarantor?
A guarantor. Okay. You hear about things like, particularly in rental situations where your son or daughter has gone off to college and they need to do a student rental, and the landlord requires the parents to be a guarantor on the leases. The guarantors do not live there, but they do sign just in case the son or daughter causes damage or fails to pay their rent. So
And another one might well be somebody who's in that same type of situation, whereby, well, I can remember when I was younger having to get a guarantor because I rented the television.
I think you still need a guarantor, Peter.
I'm not gonna. Will you be mine, Angela? Will you be mine?
No.
Yeah, that's exactly the right answer.
Trouble is, I've been guaranteeing too much yet lately.
Okay, so okay, and the important thing to point out is that a guarantor is not a cosigner, because a cosigner is a person who's an equal party to the debt.
Yeah.
So, if you and I were to co-sign something because we needed a business loan for this business, that is something we would be entering into as co-signers. You wouldn't be a guarantor for the business, and neither would I.
Yeah, it would be like if you and I are also leasing a property.
Yeah.
For the business.
Yeah, exactly. Or you know, a husband and wife living in a rental property would not, and no one's your co-signer's not guarantor. Nobody's a guarantor in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to know the difference, because the guarantor in that situation, a guarantor doesn't necessarily, to take my TV rental from before, guarantor doesn't even play with the television, doesn't touch the television, doesn't watch the TV, not unless they happen to be in your office at the same time, in your room, I mean, at the same time. The guarantor is completely independent, and the co-signer is usually like a cohabitee.
Yeah.
So they will be, the co-signer is the person who's going to use that thing. They're not guaranteeing that you're going to pay. They're equally on the slab for you not pay if they don't pay.
I have encountered a lot of those things where a creditor was going after the co-signer for cases where I've had to, and then the other party just either splits off from the partner and disappears somewhere and then leaves them holding the bag. Yeah. And we've had to go after the other party.
Yeah, and that often is the case, but there's also cases whereby a guarantor in that situation, a guarantor can still go after the guarantor. In reality, if you're going after the guarantor,
I can't hear you.
What? Okay. So if you're going after the guarantor, you would have to actually have done your due diligence in trying to find the co-signer, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, you would.
Yeah.
And this is very important because as a guarantor, the third party creditor cannot go after the guarantor until after they have enforced the debt against the parties, the co-signer and the signer.
Yeah. Attempted to enforce, and I presume that they would actually have to show evidence that they had tried to enforce the debt.
Yep. I had a case like that too, where there was a mother and a child who were renting a place, and the grandmother was the guarantor. And the landlord noted them in default. They owed rent, and the tenants were thrown out. But then after the fact, when they did move out, the landlord discovered that the place was a mess. They did not know where the daughters moved to, and the granddaughter moved to, so they just went directly after the guarantor. I bet you they collected a lot of money to go after the guarantor in small claims court. And guess
Mm.
what? Because they did not go
Well,
after the daughter and her daughter first, the guarantor is out of touch. You cannot touch them.
yeah. Well, in fact, actually, that's an interesting question because, okay, so in relation to something that, it's that question about going after the original debtor.
Yep. Yep. In this poll, he just asked a question.
Oh, yeah, okay. So we've got that. Paul Taylor. What about guarantor and LTB? I read somewhere that guarantors are not enforceable in LTB.
Yeah. They only go after tenants. You have to be a tenant as defined by the Residential Tenancies Act.
Yeah.
If you are a guarantor, they don't. So what basically happens, the landlord has to go through the LTB route first and enforce a debt or a
Well,
claim against the tenants.
let's say that you come out of the LTB and just to keep things square, the LTB says, hey, the tenant owes $5,000. So when you go to small claims court, what you should do in the small claims court would be to go after the tenant and the guarantor.
Yeah, you can enforce in the small claims court against the tenant, and then you could start a claim against the guarantor.
Yeah.
And it has to be careful because that's where the person who was a particularly experienced paralegal and didn't know the difference. She confused the guarantor with an indemnifier, which you do not confuse with an indemnifier.
Okay.
Very rare are indemnity agreements signed on those premises.
So, an indemnity agreement, what's the difference between that and a guarantor?
Guarantor guarantees if the other party defaults and you have taken the steps to enforce it against the original party. And an indemnifier indemnifies regardless. So in other words, the other party defaults, but they can go after you without enforcing against the original party.
But again, an indemnifier is different to a cosigner.
Yeah. Yeah. A cosigner is you're severally and equally and severally liable.
Yeah. So if, for example, you and I owned a car, we were both cosigners on the car, any default on the car, they could go after the both of us.
Yep, they can go after both of us, and they can go deep into Peter's assets because there's a lot of them out there.
For example, if I was the guarantor for the car that you were purchasing, they would have to go again. They'd have to take a claim against you to try and recover the debt first before they go to a claim against me.
Yeah, there would have to be some kind of judicial ruling. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to enforce it and go all the way down the line. But say if you gone to small claims court and they determined the amount of the debt that I owe is $15,000, but then they discovered that I'm a deadbeat and I don't have any money. So, but here's Peter. He's got this whole bunch of assets. So go after him.
But worse than that, actually, is that they know where I live because it's the same address as I filled out on the original form as a guarantor.
Yeah.
They don't know where you live because in the meantime, you left your rental accommodation. You left your landlord without any forwarding address. You went off to Timbuktu or wherever, and I don't know where you are.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So they would try to do this. They would try to find me first and enforce it with me first. And they would they would have to get a skip tracer, find me and enforce it. And then they discovered that I'm a deadbeat after they got me, got a judgment against me. Okay. Then they find, oh, she's judgment proof. Okay. So now there's a guarantor on the file. Then they find Peter because he's got a multi-million-dollar property. He's got several SUVs, brand new SUVs in his driveway, and he's got $1 million in the bank. So they can go after him.
Yeah, I wish. But anyway, so in that situation, so they can't find you, or they find you don't have the wherewithal to repay the debt. So they come after me. If they're running a claim against me, does that mean necessarily that they, so you've got claim 1 against Angela. Now you have to come up with claim 2 against Peter to recover the debt.
Yep. And then you collect it against Peter, and then Peter pays, and then Angela is scot-free.
But if they don't include, so in that regard, there's 2 claims. First against the debtor, second against the guarantor.
Yep. It has to always go against the debtor first. But if you were an indemnifier, Peter, if you agreed to do an indemnity agreement, which is not common, some types of agreements are indemnity agreements. I would never do an indemnity agreement on certain things. Yeah. But there are indemnity agreements out there that some smart-ass people want to put out.
But then the debtor would go for the both of us.
They can go for both of us, or they can go just for you.
Yeah. Okay. So to go to this point, what about the guarantor? Okay, so go back to Paul's original point. What about the guarantor and LTB? I read somewhere that guarantors are not enforceable in LTB.
No, you can't. You can't go against the guarantor.
But you see, what you then do is you take the claim out. Once you've got the $5,000 owed by the tenant, you then take it to the small claims court, and you still have to try to enforce it against the tenant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then in small claims court, you only put the guarantor on there after you can't do the tenant.
Yeah, well, you have an order from the board.
Yeah.
The board order is enforceable against the tenants.
Yeah.
Okay. But if they're deadbeats, or you haven't already started enforcing, you can start enforcing against the tenants, but you can still now, because you've taken action against the tenants, you can now go after the guarantor.
Okay, so what if the tenant has skipped the country, skipped Ontario, skipped wherever, right? Can you go straight for the guarantor?
Depends on what the agreement says.
Okay.
Most of the time, the agreement doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's case law that actually shows you really can't, except in certain circumstances. Okay, because there's quite a bit of case law. I remember when I had that hearing that I won, I provided a lot of case law to the opposing legal representative. And I don't know if the person had actually read it, because they clearly stated that they could not go after my person who was the guarantor.
Okay, so again, going on, if the LTB order only lists the tenants, won't the court reject enforcement against the guarantor who's not listed on the LTB order?
No, you don't enforce against the guarantor using the LTB order. You start a new claim against the guarantor.
Yeah.
Okay, using the landlord-tenant board and evidence that there is a guarantor.
Yeah.
Like, say, on the lease or in a guarantor agreement, something like that.
The lease for the guarantor to be on the lease.
Although you could still enforce against the tenants.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying you probably would have to actually try to enforce against the tenants first of all.
Yeah, because basically you have a $5,000 order against these 2 tenants, and then you put it into the court under certificate of judgment. You bring that into the court, so they bring that into the small claims. So then you have to do your affidavit and everything and all your costs. But that is solely against the tenants. Yeah. So then you could start a judgment debtor examination, garnishment, whatever you want to try. And then then you say, oh, they have a guarantor here. Right? Probably somebody rich. So I'm going to go after that one.
So basically, again, it's to remind ourselves that the use of a guarantor is to ensure that a lender or creditor will be paid at the end of the day, should the original debtor be unable to come up with the funds. And typically, as you said, a lot of this occurs when students go out for the first time renting, so they've got zero credit history, zero rental history. So the landlord doesn't know who the hell they are, got no knowledge about that particular individual, and will basically say, okay, we need a guarantor. So then typically with student rentals, of course, the parents are the first to guarantor, right? It could happen with other types of rentals, for example, a person who hasn't got enough credit. So
sometimes you'll have it, but in a landlord situation, if you're going to be asking for a guarantor, it has to be done for a good reason, right? The one problem that some of them have is that everybody who's on ODSP automatically gets a guarantor, but nobody else does, even if they're working at McDonald's. That's discrimination. You have to have a good reason for the guarantor.
There's an evidentiary problem about how you would prove that, isn't there?
Yeah, if you find that they're not doing it for somebody on McDonald's, like a friend of theirs, applies also for the same building.
You mean that if I live at number 33 and you live at number 37 and you're on ODSP and you've got a guarantor and I work at McDonald's, I'm at 33 and I don't have a guarantor.
Yeah, and you don't have a lot of money, right?
Yeah. And we're both rubbing brass knuckles together, so we got nothing between us.
Yep. And the same as where they have to try to set the policy so that it's applied equally, right, as much as possible, right? Like if somebody who's just inherited or won a lottery or something like that, I doubt they're going to be looking for rentals, but just in case they are, they probably wouldn't need a guarantor.
You never know where a personal situation may well be, do you?
Never.
That person might that person might have got divorced last week, won the lottery this week, but it still takes 6 weeks to get your lottery money through. So in the meanwhile, they still need a rental place to live in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So another area is loans. For example, like we talked about television earlier on. Hey, I go to the store. I'm young, 22, going out and filling out my first home, and I want a washing machine and a dishwasher and a television. But I get a loan for $4,000 on this lot and put them in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now, in order to get that loan, I'm then asked for a guarantor.
Yep, exactly. Like if you don't have collateral, like if you don't own your house or don't own something that you can use as collateral, very often they might ask for a guarantor in some situations, particularly no credit, low credit.
Yeah, no credit, low credit. First home you've just bought, right? It's a typical thing where you may have no credit history. Less today because people have now taken longer before they buy homes. But so maybe this loan you're doing for buying your TV, etc. They want a guarantor on it.
Yep. Well, what generally happens in buying homes, for example, is sometimes the parents would loan their kids a certain amount of money for their down payment, for example. And they would take, say, 1% ownership of the home. And then later on, they would write off that 1% and return it to the child as soon as the child is ready and paying their mortgage, and they seem to be doing all right.
Well, yeah, but typically that's mortgages are not don't have a guarantor agreement.
Mm-hmm. But but it's not necessarily. It's almost like a cosign thing. Where a parent would put money in it.
I'm talking about where a person's getting a personal loan in order to actually stock up their house, whether it be a rental or a or a mortgage one. Right? Yeah. And so in that particular instance, you're getting a loan, you're getting somebody to guarantee the loan is basically what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on, there's another one here, government documents. I was surprised at this because the last thing I expected is, so you need references and guarantors for a Canadian passport.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so references I had to fill in references. I don't remember putting a guarantor on it.
Yeah, I've had to fill out different things. So yeah, there's sometimes you have to be there has to be certain qualifications, certain professions you have to
Oh,
be. Okay. We're
yeah,
professional, we're notaries, so we're one of the professions on there.
but that's a reference, not a guarantor.
Well, that's a guarantor where you can and you can vouch for someone. And if you've known someone for 2 years or more, okay, then you could. Okay? And then there's other things too, like say if you're going to marry somebody, that's another one.
Hmm.
Okay? Or there's or like we did some work for another group of people where one fellow was sponsoring another fellow to move into Canada and to get his work visa. So we put that and they used our notary authority to make sure they understood that yes, the original documents, everything matched, and the gentleman who was before me was indeed the individual who I was speaking about. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah, but
so
again, that's not a guarantor in the same sense as a loan.
no. I'm talking about passports and
Yeah.
stuff like that, or
Yeah.
immigration documents.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. So, and actually, there's another one. You need a guarantor for a birth certificate application.
Yep, many
Right?
cases you do.
And I'm presuming it's a case of, well, actually, when I got my birth certificate, not that it applies here, but essentially when I reached a certain age, and actually when I went out and found my own place to live, my mum said, here's your birth certificate, take it with you.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Right?
had mine. I took it with me, and I don't know where it is, so I had to apply for a new one.
Yeah. I can't help you if you don't know where it is, Angela.
Yeah, so that's basically what they do. But if you've already applied for it before and then you got it, you I I don't think I had I think I put your name down as a guarantor or something. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think they really care at that stage because I've applied for it already.
There's no financial. Unlike the loan guarantee. There's no financial position here, is there?
No, no. They can call you just to verify if there's an issue, okay,
Okay.
concerning identification of an individual. Hey, just to make sure that Joe Blow is not applying for John Smith's birth certificate, so that he can go out and change his identity.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Some basic rules around this. Oh, actually, is there anything else about government documents that we're missing?
Hmm, really, like,
Because you're not guaranteeing to pay somebody's taxes or anything like that.
nope, nope. Well, I'd like to have somebody guarantee to pay my taxes. That would be good.
Yeah. Cousin Bill Gates, could you pay my taxes?
Yeah.
I always wanted a nice older cousin like Bill Gates. Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's funny that we never seem to have those relatives.
No. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Okay. So this is an important thing. Is about who is eligible to be a guarantor.
Pretty well, depending on what situation you're in, okay, why you're being a guarantor, why you're being requested to be a guarantor. They want to make sure you have a good credit profile. Okay? They want to make sure that you pay your bills on time. No use having a deadbeat being a guarantor for another deadbeat.
So yeah, but you also have to be of legal age, don't you?
Yeah, legal age, yes,
Although that said, hey,
and mentally competent, and not a undischarged bankrupt.
yeah. but also, but again, hey, if my nephew, my 13-year-old nephew, who's a billionaire, wants to be my guarantor, what's to stop him?
He's not old enough.
Thank you. That's exactly the
Yep.
answer I was hoping for.
Yep. They
You
have
know,
to be age of
that's
majority, because the age of majority, like there is an age of majority act where they do have certain things where underage people could contract and engage in certain things, but it's only for certain things like accommodations, food, necessities of life.
but if he has done his what's that called? If he's got his independence,
Oh, like emancipation?
emancipation, that was the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
If he's got his emancipation, could he do so then?
I'm not so sure. That's a question I would have. I'm not sure. But
Mm,
in general, they don't until they reach the age of
yeah,
majority.
I think that would
Because
be a
that's
very
affecting you, because it's part of your situation. But at an emancipation, he can do things for himself,
yeah.
right? And he can get into things, maybe buy a house, that sort of thing, right? At that stage, because he
Well,
would have
even prior to
the capabilities.
yeah,
If he's got the money for it, fine.
yeah. On emancipation, he can buy the house. Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
you just buy the house.
But he can't. But I think that's probably correct that he would not be able to be a guarantor.
Like he can't be a guarantor for a friend of his that's renting somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
So I mean, it becomes really kind of messy, and you're dealing with also capacities. You're dealing with age of minority. Talk about a lot of different things that become subject to these things.
yeah.
An undischarged bankrupt also you can't be.
Well, actually, that makes common sense because you think about this is that go back to that go back to any of those situations we're talking about. I want a loan or I want to rent a place, and I give Angela as my guarantor. And they run Angela's credit history, and they go, "Oh, she's an undisclosed discharged bankrupt."
Can't use that as a guarantor, Peter. Find someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the case in every instance here, right?
Yep. So the thing that you do need to do is ask the person first if they want to be guarantor, and the person who's requesting the guarantor has a right to check out the guarantor to make sure that they're reliable, they have a good payment history, they have a good credit rating, that sort of thing. So if they have to be
Yeah,
called upon to cover the debt, that there's money there.
yeah, yeah. So and the thing is, yeah, absolutely. Because if I'm asking Angela to be my guarantor, and the shop, the landlord, etc., goes and checks her credit history out, and Angela's got a 700 credit rating, it's going to be zip,
Well,
not.
actually, that 700 credit rating is actually quite good. It's good.
Well, I was going to say it might be different if you
What
had an.
about what about a 500 credit rating, Peter?
Well, I was going to say it'd be different if you had a 720 credit rating. I mean,
Yeah, because I've got an 845.
credit rating, right? If you've
Yeah.
got an 820 credit rating, then you might well be, there might be better, more inclined to deal with it. And you say again a 550, then it's going to be absolutely nada.
Yeah. Depends also who you're looking at too, which whether you're looking at TransUnion or Equifax, as they use different issues to
Well,
rate the credit
that's
rating.
true. That's that actually is very true, and that's a difference anyway. It depends upon who you deal with.
So I don't know. Like that's why I said like I said, yes, I sign up things with Peter. I'm trying to improve your credit rating so that you'll be up there too. Okay? But it takes time to
Yeah.
build it. You got to take your
Okay.
phone, pay for it. Got to take your credit card, even if you just pay payments every month. Just do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
that's
next one.
usually how you keep your credit rating up.
Yeah. The next one here is what's the consequence of default? We talked about default on a few quite all the way through here.
Consequence of default is that well, in general, what cases are heard is that if you're a guarantor on a debt, that first of all, the debtors are notified. You may be notified as the guarantor that the debtors have fallen into debt. So at this point, you may want to tell the debtors, okay, so you've fallen into debt here. I'm paying, that's it. And don't you ever do that again. Hey, you could do that. Hey, it's happened. Hey, so I mean that's one way of doing it. But if you don't want to do it, they can start. They would have to start enforcing it against the debtors first.
Yeah, and and this is actually one of the things that a lot of people don't really necessarily think of, because they think, oh, everything's fine. Joe's not going to default on his mortgage. You're not going to mortgage doesn't come into it. That's a different matter.
Yeah, they got property. It's an unsecured debt they have.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not going to default on his loan. He's not going to. He's not going to be a bad tenant. But what you don't realize is that 3 years down the line, Joe loses his job, and he hits bad times. He gets divorced, loses his jobs, and gets sued for $1 million.
And the other thing too that you need to know about the landlord-tenant board when you put into a lease and you're a guarantor, and you agree to be a guarantor, make sure that there's nothing in there that would make you a guarantor more than the term of that lease, which is a year usually.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he does very well, pays the rent, everything well after the year, and then 6 months later continues to pay rent really well, then at the 18th month he starts defaulting and loses his job, then they can't come after you.
Yeah,
because you're already signed up.
He's lost his job. He lost his wife. He lost, he's ill and in the hospital. On ODSP now.
The only thing you could do is take that country music record and play it backwards.
You played it forwards because that was the Wah Wah song, right?
Yeah.
Because after all, that's the great thing about country music. It's brother, cousin, uncle, sister, aunt, and niece.
And they lose their dogs, and they lose their truck, and
they're all in trouble. They're pregnant or whatever, and nobody loves them. Yeah.
Well, that's the violin. I usually have the tiniest violin for that.
Right, but that's the joy of country music, right? Don't like it, don't follow it, right?
I don't listen to it that much. But anyways, this is what they do. This is why if you're agreeing to be a guarantor for your kid who's going to university and they're pretty well staying in the same place, hey, make sure it's no more than a year, the term of the lease.
Yeah. So while we were talking country music, again, if anybody's got a video out there of what was her name? Tammy Wynette coming down onto the stage. Somebody forced me to go to this concert, and so Tammy Wynette came down to off the stage and picked me to sing along with her song. The only one song of hers that I ever knew.
Oh yeah, which one was that?
The one beginning with D.
The divorce.
Yeah, the DIVORCE one. Yeah. Everybody knew that, but anyway. So if anybody's got a video of that, I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
Not now, not ever, and you're not playing.
Well, if they have a picture of you up there singing with her, fine. I'd like to see that.
Actually, I wouldn't mind to see the picture, but I just don't want to hear it. Hey, I probably spoiled that song.
There was one song about these boots are made for walking.
Anyway, so the consequence of default can be pretty serious, and I think that's actually one of the things you need to think about. So, hey, Angela, I'm getting a $50,000 car loan. Can you be my guarantor? And your answer should be, hell no, not now, not ever.
I got a great credit rating, and guess what, Peter? I'd like to keep it.
I'm playing the target here deliberately in this case.
But sometimes, there may be very often a car loan, like if one of the spouse signs it, the other one will, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, to
And
kind of help them out. Particularly if one's working, one's not.
well, in often the bank actually likes to do it that way because there's, I think that they realize if they get both spouses on the hook for the car, even if Joe forgets to pay, Mary's going to be on his back to pay it.
Oh, yes.
You know.
Yep. And they take out the whips and chains and I think everybody's got those somewhere in their house.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a key question. Very key question. And I have to put this, I had to edit this one. Here's the key question of everything we've talked about. Can I say no?
After you sign the document and then you are found, to further guarantor and you're liable, yes, you could not say no because you have to be responsible. But prior to, if someone asks you to be a guarantor, you can say no.
Yeah.
Okay? Sometimes it may be difficult, particularly if it's a good friend of yours or a son or a daughter or somebody else who you're close to. Okay? It could be difficult, but you have to consider that if they're going to be that way, you're going to end up responsible for the debt. Unless you know the person who's doing this and taking the loan and you know that that person's pretty honorable and you feel that you want to give them a chance, and that's fine. But remember that when you do this, you're always taking a risk.
Yeah. Okay, so another question about some of these, and it just occurred to me. Can a guarantor be like a company?
It could be. Okay, but the company has to have some interest with the individual.
Yeah, but okay, so your company employs me.
Ooh, sometimes the employer would be doing this. I guess I haven't really heard of that, but I guess the employer could be a guarantor. But I don't think the person would have a job afterwards if the person doesn't, if they default on the loan.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm not saying that. Okay, so my cousin Vinny owns a restaurant, Eastside Vinny's. Could he be a guarantor for my loan? Could his company be a guarantor for my loan?
Possibly, if he's doing well and so forth, he could. Okay, but then again, he gets a credit check and everything else. Okay, so 356418 Ontario Inc. probably, which trades as Eastside Vinny's, probably get a credit check.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So and these are important questions to ask, and of course, I think it does all come down to the question of no, because there's a lot of responsibility there, and when you look at the consequences of default, it's like, hey, I'm doing a $50,000 car loan because I want or even $150,000 car loan because I want a new Mercedes, right? You might say
this person all your life. This person borrowed $200 from you, never paid you back.
Yeah.
The person went to several apartments and then the person got kicked out. The person lost a few jobs, okay? Or even went play pool with them and had bets with them and he lost a few games. So, I mean, these things, you're not going to lend them or even be a guarantor for them.
Yeah, exactly. So that $150,000 loan for a new Mercedes, I think the answer to that one is categorically not a chance in hell, right?
Not a snowball's chance in hell.
Yeah, and that's about the basic seriousness of this, because it really is an important subject to understand, because you can be on the hook for that money, right?
Yep, exactly. And you have to decide whether the risk is worth it.
Yeah.
The person that is asking you to be the guarantor, whether that person is trustworthy? Do you know that person's history? As I said earlier, that person could have a really bad history with money,
Well,
getting
and
kicked
and
out
the
of
other
places.
question, even if they got a really good history with money, and they've always paid their car loans off, but
Hmm.
because they had bad credit recently, or they lost their job and ended up with bad credit recently, you might feel sorry for them. What you don't know is they're intending to abscond to California with the new car.
Yep, and this is what happens a lot of times. You know, you need to really know this person. Okay,
Yeah.
like there's very few people I really know. There are people I do know, but sometimes not enough for me to serve as a guarantor.
And because when a person, okay, so
My son did ask me.
there are probably ways to actually get that car back from California.
Yep, there are. You can enforce a foreign judgment,
Yeah,
and you can do that.
yeah, but you still have to find it,
Yep, exactly.
right? And the fact is that if I went to California and re-registered the car in California and put it under a different name, I used my California birth certificate, which had Joey Jones instead of Peter Giblett on it.
Mhm.
You'd it'd be difficult to actually trace it, right?
Hmm. But
And
there's identifiers for all the cars. All cars have identifiers, and they need to be registered.
yeah,
So if you're going down there, the car would have an identifier, and these things
but
could be traced.
you'd have to know the car's in California, not Idaho.
Yeah, but say if you did that, there is different ways that they can trace it.
Sure.
I'm not sure how they do it, but I know that something was found before. Somebody just took off from Ontario and they went down to one of the states, and they found where it was because the
Yeah.
person just set up shop and started living there and everything else. Took the car, registered it in the states, and did everything, and they found it. Okay, because because each car has the VIN.
Yep.
Okay, and most people don't think about, oh, let's just scrape the VIN off. Sometimes they do that, but then immediately there's suspicion
And it
raised.
gives different kind of problem. Yeah.
Yeah, the person has another set of issues to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah. I think the cops would be after them at that point,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, the police like to go after those people.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there any further thoughts you've got about being a guarantor?
Well, basically, it's one of those things where you're looking after it, and it's a service that could be provided. There are individuals who provide this, like say young people in the community. They try to help them out because these people have like these people are loaded. They got money,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But they
Sure.
try to help young people out in the community, that sort of thing, and to help them get their own place, to help them get maybe going to school, different things, just to help them out, to get them on their feet. Okay,
Okay.
but
So,
it's not a common thing, but it's usually family, close friends, occasionally an employer if it's the person's been employed with them for a long time.
yeah.
Okay, and they haven't done any fireable offenses yet. Okay, so they do okay.
But again, okay. So, unlike bail bondsman, there's no such thing as somebody who can be a commercial guarantor, is there?
Not really, not that I know of.
Yeah, no,
I haven't really heard of anything like that, but there are people that might be doing this as a philanthropy type of thing.
you mean you might find a Bill Gates Foundation or something of that
Yeah,
kind of nature.
yeah.
I
Like
mentioned
if
that
you're
name.
friends with Bill Gates or Steve or Jeff Bezos or something like that, I mean, why not?
Yeah, yeah. Well, in fact, actually, probably somebody like that could come to somewhere like a city the size of St. Catharines and say he's going to pay everybody's mortgage off,
Oh yes, that's what I would like. Why don't they come here? Why
and
don't
it
they come?
wouldn't cost them an arm and a leg.
Yeah, and they'd still have billions left.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a topic for another issue. Okay, so I haven't really gotten anything else to add. I don't think as in terms of guarantors.
Yeah, but if you do agree to be a guarantor, make sure you read the fine print, right? Because you need to put this in writing. You can't just add your name on the lease because it doesn't work that way. You have to have a separate agreement for a guarantor, and there has to be compensation for that agreement.
Yeah. Okay. So in that regard, so just to be very clear, when we're talking about leases, should there be any issue in relation to the lease, the landlord is always going to take action in the LTB against the lease of the tenant, and then they must go to against the tenant in the small claims court. Must try to enforce the judgment against the tenant in the small claims court.
Yeah, and at that time, then they can start a new claim against the guarantor. Which has to be a separate claim that you sue the guarantor in small claims, and then you provide a copy of the guarantor agreement of the lease as evidence that that person should be held responsible.
I would also say that you would actually have to have the guarantor agreement, but you would also have to have the enforcement, the order and the enforcement proceedings in the small claims court,
and how you started the enforcement proceedings. As I said, it doesn't have to go all the way through, but you have to have something where you're starting to work and enforce it against the tenants.
Yeah, so there would have to be
a small claim. And then, like I just started, served them a judgment debtor examination, and at the same time, I just filed a case against the guarantor, served it on the guarantor, and then we carry on to the judgment debtor examination with the tenants.
But essentially, my point is that you should have a small claims file number for the tenant, for one, and a small claims, and put that into evidence again when you collect against the guarantor.
And they know that it's an active case, and then there's fine.
Yeah.
Okay?
Because you've got to file against the tenant first, and then file against the guarantor second.
Yeah. And a lot of times what happens is the guarantor says, oh, you owe us this much money? Oh my God. Okay? Like a lot of times what's really good if a landlord is working with a guarantor and then they stop paying their rent, that sort of thing, get it early.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can avoid all this trouble.
Well, in fact,
the guarantor would probably be very happy to pay you.
Well, I would in fact actually think that probably the best thing you do with that situation is that first of all, when you file the when you serve the N4 against the tenant, you should write a letter to the guarantor to indicate that the tenant stopped paying.
Yeah, exactly. So that if necessary, the guarantor can step in and just pay.
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of times, especially parents, they will do that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's actually one of the reasons why many who deal with student rentals like student rentals, because the student rental market, there's a guarantor by the parents that ensures the rest of the payment is made.
Yep, and that's what they do, and that's why it's good business. It's good business practice.
Yeah,
to do that and to work with the guarantors. And that way you're not going to end up with a disaster on your hands, say if the students throw one big wild party and mess up the whole place.
Yeah. All right. So that's been a fascinating history about, or talk about guarantors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say here, if you need to contact Invictus Legal LLP, you can do so at 905-688-5598. You can email Angela at weareinvictus.legal or me at peter@weareinvictus.legal. And our website is weareinvictus.legal. And is moving on to the last part of the show.
Yep. So what you heard today on Spin Legal, whether it's this show or others in our series, this is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, then please contact a paralegal or a lawyer, okay? Because this is not legal advice. It's like hearing it from Facebook. We can tell you this, a bit interesting discussion. Hey, we tell you things that are truthful, but we don't have anything that's applicable legally to somebody's case.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's
And
best to talk to a paralegal or a
Yeah.
lawyer.
And the point being is, just because we talked about guarantors for today doesn't mean that entire thing applies to you and your case. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Every
There
case
could be
is different.
something different in the agreement that you signed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'd have to bring in the agreement so we can take a look at it to see whether or not, because sometimes these agreements will say that you're extending beyond a year,
Yeah.
and you may not necessarily know that. So these things you have to be very, very careful with all of these.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, we are on YouTube, so go on Invictus Legal at YouTube. And you can find our Spin Legal shows and some past episodes. We're hoping to upload more past episodes up on YouTube. So, and subscribe to that channel on there.
Yep, we've got Invictus Legal on YouTube, we've got Invictus Legal on LinkedIn, and we've got Spin Legal on Facebook, where we are playing this at the moment, where we show this at the moment.
Yeah.
Right?
So this is what we're trying to do.
We can only show to 3 channels simultaneously, but hey, feel free to share our work.
Share our work with your friends, family, and get them to join us. Join absolutely. YouTube, LinkedIn, or our Spin Legal channel, whatever social media you use.
Yep, like Paul Everton, who was here earlier on, and we're grateful of any comments you make. And especially if you've got topic ideas for the next,
topic ideas are always welcome. You just send them to us to the email addresses we just gave you, or you can share them on social media with us and saying any kind of topic ideas you'd like us to talk about. Or if you know somebody who you would like to see as a guest.
Yeah. Talking of topic ideas, well, actually there's a couple of things next week, talking topic ideas, I think we're going to be doing what is a surety. So this is for criminal situations.
Yep. Right? Yep. For people are deciding whether they could be a surety or not.
Yeah.
Right?
And we'll give you some.
There's a lot of responsibility put on your shoulders there.
Yeah. And then the other question is, we've already talked to Matt Olson, who's the president of the OPA, about coming on Spin Legal at some point, and he's agreed to do that. So we're hoping to line that one up at some point in the near future.
And that will be an interesting one.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for being with us, and have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.